She was the kingdom's forgotten secret, raised in the shadows. When she was sent in place of her arrogant twin sister to be a bride to a tribal chief, everyone thought her end had come. But there was one thing her family didn't know. They hadn't sent a victim. They had sent a warrior. This is the story of how a life built on a lie became a legend. The fate of the kingdom rested on the shoulders of 18-year-old Princess Amara. Her father, King Pharaon, to seal a peace treaty with the ruthless Rock Scorpion tribe, had promised his daughter as a bride to the tribe's feared young chief, Kalan. Amara had grown up within the palace walls amid silks and jewels. She was an arrogant, delicate, and selfish woman. For her, this marriage meant being cast out among savages, a separation from civilization. In tears, she begged her mother, Queen Seraphina, "You cannot send me to that monster," she sobbed. "I won't survive a single day there." Queen Seraphina's heart was as cold as ice. What mattered to her was the kingdom, not her daughter's happiness. But Amara's collapse could also be the kingdom's collapse. It was then that they saw the dark secret they had kept for years as their only way out. A secret raised in the shadows of the palace, in the stables and the barracks, known to no one. Ilara. She was Amara's twin sister. Claimed to be weak at birth, she was declared dead and secretly raised by the palace's warmaster. Ilara was the exact opposite of Amara. Her hands were not soft with silk, but calloused from a sword. She knew nothing of court intrigue, but she knew how to ride, trek, and fight. The queen summoned Ilara. "The time has come to make a sacrifice for the kingdom," she said. "You will take your sister's place and marry that savage chief." It was the first time Ilara had ever been treated like a princess. But she knew it was not a reward, but a punishment. That night, a powerful sleeping herb was mixed into Ilara's drink. When she opened her eyes, she was wearing Amara's magnificent wedding dress, surrounded by a silent circle of tribal warriors who had come to take her to her new home. The journey was a nightmare for Ilara. The Rock Scorpion warriors did not speak a single word to her, only sized her up with icy eyes. They were expecting a delicate princess, but instead they found a strange woman whose very walk resembled a soldier's, silent but with fire in her eyes. When they arrived at the tribe's village, Ilara was brought directly before Chief Kalan. Kalan, despite his youth, had been in hundreds of battles, an imposing man who did not let his emotions show on his face. As required by the treaty, he examined the bride presented to him. He expected a noble woman, trembling with fear, with soft hands, but in Ilara's eyes there was no fear, only analysis. When Kalan took Ilara's hand, he felt not silky skin, but calluses hardened from wielding a sword. Kalan's brow furrowed. This was an insult. "They promised me a princess," he roared, "not a servant or an imposter." Ilara could not explain who she was or why she was here. Her family had sent her to her death. There was no turning back. She chose to remain silent. This silence only deepened Kalan's suspicion. He did not have her taken to the grand tent reserved for a bride, but imprisoned her in a small, isolated hut where the lowest-ranking members of the tribe stayed. Ilara's first night in the tribe was the moment the real intrigue began. Zora, Kalan's most trusted advisor, and the woman seen as his intended bride, came to visit Ilara. Zora was one of the most intelligent and dangerous women in the tribe. She had noticed Kalan's strange interest in this foreigner, his suspicion from the first moment. "So," Zora said, looking Ilara up and down, "you are the little secret the king sent us." In this woman's eyes, Ilara saw not friendship, but deadly rivalry. Zora was waiting for this fake princess to make a mistake, and Zora would do everything in her power to guarantee that mistake. Ilara was no longer just a captive, she was a pawn in a power struggle within the tribe. The next day, Ilara's first test as a royal bride began. At Zora's suggestion, she was asked to perform the traditional tasks of the tribe's women, weaving the sacred patterns, grinding healing herbs, and preparing the ceremonial meal. Ilara had never held a needle in her life. She was a complete disaster at the loom. She broke the threads, ruined the patterns. Instead of healing herbs, she sorted the poisonous ones. As the women of the tribe mocked her, Zora smiled with false compassion. "You see," she said to Chief Kalan, The king sent us his most useless daughter. This is a betrayal of the treaty." Ilara's shame turned to anger. She had not been trained for these tasks. In the evening, when Kalen and his warriors returned from the hunt, the young men of the tribe were practicing with their spears. One of the youths couldn't hit the target, testing Kalen's patience. Ilara could no longer bear to watch the failed throws. Under everyone's astonished gaze, she stepped forward and took one of the practice spears in her hand. She closed her eyes, balanced her breathing as the war master had taught her, felt the weight, and threw the spear. The spear flew with a sharp whistle, and 50 paces away, it struck the exact center of the target, the bull's eye. A deadly silence fell over the village. All the warriors, even Kalen, were frozen in place. That was not a lucky shot. It was the throw of a master warrior. Ilara had failed at everything a princess was supposed to do, but had perfectly executed the one move a warrior was supposed to make. Zora's face darkened with jealousy and hatred. The suspicion in Kalen's eyes, however, gave way to a much more dangerous emotion, intense curiosity. "Who?" Kalen said, his voice as cold as ice. "Are you?" Ilara understood in that moment that her real test had just begun, because Zora had just found the proof she needed to spread the lie that this warrior bride was an assassin sent to kill Kalen. Zora had found the opportunity she was looking for on a silver platter. "An assassin!" she screamed in the tribal council. "The king didn't send his daughter. He sent his most trained killer to murder us all. You saw the spear. She will seduce Kalen and then slaughter us all in our sleep." This accusation spread like poison into the heart of the tribe. Ilara's incompetence was now seen as a mask, her silence, the cold-bloodedness of a killer. The chief turned to Kalen in anger. "You brought this imposter. You will deal with her." Kalen was faced with the hardest decision of his life. Should he obey his father's command and execute her, or should he trust the strange confidence he felt deep in his heart? Kalen made a plan. "I will test her," he said. "If she is a warrior, she will prove it at the Silent River." The Silent River was the tribe's most dangerous hunting ground. It was home to giant crocodiles and venomous snakes. No one went there alone. Zora smiled in victory, thinking Kalen was sending the girl to her death. Kalen took Ilara to the river's edge. "If you are a warrior," he said in a harsh voice, "you will bring me the sun's eye flower from the island across that river, and you will go alone." Ilara knew this was an execution, but the war master had trained her not just to fight, but to survive. She found a way to cross the river. She observed the flow of the water, the resting times of the crocodiles. Just as she crossed over and plucked the flower, a trap secretly set by Zora was triggered. A rope tied to the trap released a giant boulder. Ilara couldn't escape, but Kalen, suspecting Zora, had followed them secretly. The moment he saw the trap, he shouted, pushed Ilara out of the way, and was caught under the rock himself. His leg was horrifically crushed. Zora's plan had worked again, but it had trapped the wrong person. Ilara was now faced with two choices: flee and leave the man who sent her to her death, or save his life. Ilara didn't hesitate for a moment. As she tried to pull Kalen's massive body from under the rock, she remembered the War Master's painful lessons. Strength is not in the muscles, but in the intelligence to use leverage. Using a tree branch, she leveraged the rock and pulled Kalen to safety. His leg looked terrible, and the bleeding wouldn't stop. Ilara tore off her princess dress and used the skill her father had forced her to learn, one she had hated until that day: herbal medicine. She skillfully used spider's web and rock moss to stop the bleeding and make a tourniquet. As Kalen drifted in and out of consciousness from the pain, who watched in amazement as this delicate woman moved like a healer. It took them days to get back to the tribe. Ilara both protected and fed the limping warrior. She hunted with his spear. She kept him warm with her fire. When they arrived at the tribe, she was carrying Kalen on her back. The village was stunned at the sight. The fake princess had saved the tribe's strongest warrior. Zora was horrified by this incredible return. Kalen's rescue could be the proof of her betrayal. When the chief looked at Ilara, he no longer saw a captive, but the hero who had saved his son's life. However, Zora had one less move. Kaelin's leg was not healing, it was poisoned. The tribe's healers were helpless. Zora screamed, "This is the foreigner's dark magic!" She pretended to save our warrior, but she returned with a curse that is slowly killing him. We must burn her. Kaelin's life was hanging by a thread, and the tribe was about to fall into Zora's trap of fear. Ilara, looking at Kaelin's feverish brow, knew the antidote could only be in one place, in her own kingdom, at her father's palace. To go back meant signing her own execution warrant. But to save Kaelin, she had to take that risk. Ilara stole the fastest horse from the tribe and vanished into the darkness. She was no longer riding like a captive, but like a warrior on a mission. When she reached the borders of her own kingdom, the guards recognized her and immediately captured her, bringing her before her mother, Queen Seraphina. "You're back," the queen said, her voice void of both love and regret. "And you broke the treaty. You will bring the rock scorpions to war with us." Ilara said, "I don't care about the war. I need the antidote. Kaelin is dying." Just then, her twin sister, Amara, appeared, looking delicate and frightened. "Help her, mother," she whispered. "She went in my place. Her death will be the death of my conscience." For the first time in her life, the queen was caught between her two daughters, but the fate of her kingdom depended on Kaelin staying alive. She could not risk a war. She gave Ilara the antidote. As Ilara fled the palace with the antidote, a group of Kaelin's most trusted warriors was waiting for her at the gate. They had followed her, thinking she was a traitor. "You poisoned our chief, and now you meet with the enemy," they shouted. Just as they were about to kill her, Kaelin himself appeared on his horse, his leg wounded. He had followed Ilara. "Stop," he said. "She is not a traitor. She is my life." When they returned to the tribe, Zora's betrayal had already been exposed. In Ilara's absence, she had been caught trying to give Kaelin one last dose of poison. With the antidote Ilara brought, Kaelin recovered completely. That day the chief stood before his people. "They sent us a princess," he said, "but the spirits gifted us a warrior." He turned to Ilara. "You did not submit to your fate. You rewrote ours. You are no longer a captive. You will be this tribe's shield sister, my son's wife, and this people's queen." Years later, as Ilara and Kaelin ruled their tribes together, her twin sister Amara came to visit. The two sisters built a bridge of peace between the tribes. Ilara, who had begun her life as a princess, had found her true self as a warrior queen.